Hey there, acolyte. Hold on a moment. Let me get a look at you. A stranger told him. Morgan was tired, filthy and in no mood for anyone's bullshit. What he wanted was to shower, eat and sleep. Yet here were two strangers blocking his path to the overseer, the one step he had to complete before he could get to the holy trinity of mental health. By the time his mind had decided politeness was still the best course, the stranger continued. So you're Overseer Tremel's secret weapon, huh? Impressive, to be sure. Afraid the old man waited too long to make his move, though. He knew this one. Something about him seemed familiar, but Morgan's tired mind couldn't quite remember who he was. I'm Vemrin, and unlike you I fought and bled for everything I have. I demand respect. That's Vemrin? He thought, surprised. He finally scanned his apparent enemy, more surprise flickering through him when Vemrin detected it. That spoke of good self-awareness. His ambusher seemed just as surprised, his eyes narrowing and immediately trying to scan him in return. But Morgan had made it a habit to always have his soul shield up, especially with how efficient it had become. Unlike most others around here, it seemed. Still, must be a drain if it's not as refined as mine. Guess that's why the overseers don't do it. Or anyone I've met, really. Vermin's eyes widened, just slightly, when his own scan ran into Morgan's shield. He sighed. You have no actual idea who I am or what I've been through, do you? He looked to the side, where Vemrin's companion was trying very hard to loom. Vemrin screams danger, and feels as strong as soft voice. You do not. Stop looming, before I open you from balls to chin and watch as your guts spill on the floor. He politely lied. The slab blinked, not seeming intimidated. So stupid and weak, good to know. You won't live long. He looked back to Vemrin, who was silently reassessing him. All right. How about this? My name is Morgan. He still found it strange that he had gone a whole year without anyone using his new name, before Tremel had told him. And we are going to be enemies. So save whatever is left of your speech, and go. I need to speak to the overseer, not blab with you. Vemrin scowled, motioning his slab to follow him as he left. You have no idea the enemy you're making. Morgan nodded amiably, resisting the urge to nip this problem in the bud here and now. Cripple him, maybe. Won't look good if I attack without cause. I'm not in the facility anymore. There are rules here. Tradition. The slab hesitated, opening his mouth to speak. Unfortunately Morgan was well and truly done with them both, so he sent a blanket mental attack at the fool. It didn't do great damage, with how it was both untargeted and done against a, relatively, complex brain. It still caused Slab to clutch his head in pain, confusion spreading over his face. Morgan walked past him and into the overseer's office proper while he was distracted. Good, you've returned. Overseer Tremel started. You seem to be in one piece. Tell me, how do you like your new blade? A woman, either another acolyte or his daughter, stood next to him. She looked impatient. Having a weapon with a proper edge is appreciated, Overseer. The woman cut in before Tremel could continue. What are you doing, father? I only just got my warblade, and I've been here 6 months. Tremel scowled at her interruption. I have my reasons, Eskeller. And you will not breathe a word of this to anyone. Do you hear? Morgan could feel she wanted to argue, but relented after a second of glaring. Yes. Yes, father. She bowed. The overseer nodded to the door, and Eskeller left without a word. Anger boiled within her, and Morgan could feel the dark feed on it with glee. Now, I thought I heard Vemrin's voice in the adjacent chamber before you arrived. Did he make his move so soon? Not really. Morgan replied. Just some posturing and a sad attempt at intimidation. Tremel nodded, but narrowed his eyes. Do not take him lightly, acolyte. Vemrin is an impatient hound, but not a weak one. Underestimate him, and he will take your throat. I said he was posturing, and bad at intimidation. Not that he was weak. Yes, Overseer. The Overseer relaxed, pleased. In a drive for sheer numbers, the criteria for academy admittance has been relaxed. Now anyone with force sensitivity is allowed entrance. Vemrin is mixed blood, Tremel continued. Morgan mentally rolled his eyes, unsurprised at a Sith being racist. The invisible rot eating at the foundation of the Empire. He must not be allowed to advance. Unfortunately, Vemrin's caught the eye of Darth Barras, one of the most influential Sith Lords. He's being groomed to be Barras's new apprentice. As his apprentice, the power at Vemrin's fingertips will be considerable. He could change the Sith for the worse. Morgan said nothing, noting down various things the Overseer said on his datapad. I don't think it's possible for the Sith to get any worse, but sure. Whatever you say. You must proceed to your next trial immediately. I want you to interrogate 3 prisoners in the Academy's jails first thing in the morning. You are to decide their fates. Tremel turned back to his desk, picking up a datapad. Speak to head jailer Nash and return to me after you've passed judgment. Dismissed. Morgan found his way to the acolyte quarters without much issue, and had a quick shower before bed. He barely remembered to scarf down some rations, before falling into his bunk without looking at the other acolytes nearby. Sleep took him fast. That's him. A quiet voice whispered. That's the new acolyte. He groaned, dragging himself up and awake. If that was less than 4 hours, I'm killing everyone in this room. 6 acolytes crowded around his bunk, backing away slightly when he stood. How long was I asleep? Slab took a step forward, jabbing Morgan in the chest with a finger. It's tradition to haze new acolytes, he said, ignoring his question. And I'm in charge of your hazing. He grinned, pleased with himself. And the best part? It's tradition. You can't do a thing about it without the Overseers punishing you. The next person to touch me loses his eating privileges. Morgan gravelled out, finding his warblade gone from where he had put it. And the first person to tell me where you idiots hid my weapon will get to keep their walking privileges. Slab frowned, poking him again. You don't control the cafeteria. You're just an acolyte. Slab turned his frown into a smile. And we didn't touch your blade. Someone must have stolen it. Morgan sighed, and his enforcement snapped through his body in the time it took his heart to beat. His hand shot forward, his fist slamming into Slab's throat before the man had time to blink. He went down gasping, clutching at his throat. Another slow-witted acolyte tried to grab his shoulder, and he shattered her own with a simple step grab and lock. Soft voice had taught him that, what now felt like a lifetime ago. The rest flinched back, afraid. One acolyte, proving himself smarter than all the others combined, pointed to a locker on the other side of the room. Morgan fetched his warblade, leaving the sleeping quarters without any more interruptions. Finding the library wasn't any more difficult than finding the sleeping quarters, and he started to browse the shelves until he came upon something interesting. The Art of Alchemy, a treatise on flesh grafting by Lord Gratil. The plaque informed him. Just above it, in a glass case, was a simple holocron with none of the decoration or embellishment he had seen on many of the others he had walked past. He opened the case without much issue, careful to not displace the holocron. The warning engraved into the walls at the entrance warned about what would happen if an item was removed from its casing. He had no immediate wish to be turned into one, personally. Prodding the holocron with the force revealed little, save for a strange, narrow pathway for him to follow. He pushed the force through it, finding it narrowing and twisting the further he got. After a few minutes of careful prodding, he ran along a tiny bump. The pathway constricted violently, and he cursed. He broke the connection, feeling sore in the force in a way he never quite had before. He tried again, careful to avoid the bump this time. That became harder as he moved along, the bumps becoming more numerous and less obvious. It took him nearly an hour, finding this the hardest his control had ever been challenged. Ways to bend and twist the force he had never thought of, with even the slightest mistake causing the pathway to shut violently. It was more than a little uncomfortable, but also rewarding. He twisted and wormed his way through, until he finally made it without a mistake. The holocron opened, and a voice drifted out. Nearly 54 years since last this holocron was opened. The Sith must be in ruin for the acolytes of the Academy to be this weak. The voice, sounding young and tired, sounded little like that of a Sith Lord. Lord Gratil? No. And before you ask, my name or identity is not important. Nor was it recorded into this holocron, for that matter. I will not have politics stand in the way of learning, not again. Again? Morgan probed. Yes, again. No more of these questions. Morgan put up a hand in acceptance. You sound more alive than any other holocron I've interacted with. The voice laughed, a raspy sound. Interacted with? Maybe you have seen your fair share of them, then. Most say talked with. Very well, if it will get you to stop asking these questions. The material in this holocron was once inscribed on stone tablets or fragile paper. I spent my last few months of life transferring my essence into it, so that the knowledge could live through me. So that I could be its teacher. Its guardian. The voice coughed, sounding pained. Now then. You have passed the test of opening the holocron, and are thus rewarded with the knowledge within. Tell me, Acolyte, how long did it take you? Morgan contemplated lying, but saw no real reason to. About an hour, give or take. An hour. The voice was silent for a moment. Interesting. Well then, shall we begin your lesson on flesh crafting? Morgan looked at his datapad, noting the time. I truthfully don't have long. Other tasks await me, no matter how fascinating this is. The voice made its sking sound. Then we shall be quick. It cleared his throat, sounding so very alive. Flesh crafting, a discipline of Sith alchemy, is the art of change. This could be the change of beasts, people or any organic material. Its name might give you the impression that it is limited to flesh, while in truth it deals with any form of change. Growing bone, muscle or any other tissue is perfectly possible, if increasingly more complex as you progress in the art. Morgan picked up his datapad, dutifully making notes. Sculpting monsters to do your bidding, making your followers stronger and more durable, or even growing plagues are all uses for the art. Its true value, however, lies in its ability to improve oneself. With the Force, and deep meditation, you can achieve awareness of the body that is near impossible for any other being. While altering others is doable, it is done with grafting better qualities onto them. Replacing skin with strong hides to make them tougher, better muscles to make them stronger. Even giving them the eyes of animals, allowing such things as night vision, is very useful. It does carry the chance of rendering the subject mentally unstable, but such are the risks. Morgan made careful note of it all, but was becoming less and less interested. What I find the best use, however, is self-modification. When proper study is done, one can improve not through grafting, but careful manipulation. To promote the strengthening of muscle, so that none can overpower you through sheer brute strength. To make the skin shrug off blast of fire, or even make the liver capable of rendering any poison harmless, with no grafting required. His head shot up, staring at the holocron. Poison immunity. Strength to rival soft voice without turning into an abomination. Skin tough enough to stop the inevitable knife in my back. I thought you might like that. The voice resounded smugly. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Flesh crafting requires flawless control, not to mention extensive practice. Now then, make careful note of the following. They will be the essence of the art, and will need to be mastered before any true practice can be done. Morgan put his head down, rapidly making notes. Now this sounds like it might be worth my time. He walked into the jail nearing noon, his studies keeping him longer than intended. Cages lined the wall, many more than seemed needed. 3 were to the side, with Nash pacing before them. One cage, on the other side of the space, held a Twi'lek, blue-skinned and staring at the wall vacantly. He carefully ignored her, turning to the jailer. Nothing you can do for her yet. You don't even know her. Not really. I'm Jailer Nash. I run these cells and the slave pits. You're the acolyte Tremel sent for the test, right? He must think highly of you. Morgan said nothing, motioning to the cells with his trial in them. Not a talker, eh? No skin off my back. Nash turned to them, nodding at each. Now, these 3 prisoners have been selected for your inspection. You gotta interrogate them as needed, and then decide their fate. Whatever you decide, you will be the one to carry out the sentence. Morgan decided that he wanted to spend as little time in this place as he could. He barked at the first prisoner. The woman jumped. Name and reason for imprisonment. The woman, human and with black hair, stared at him stubbornly. He stared back calmly, and after a few seconds she caved first. Solence. I was hired to kill someone, but I had no idea he was Imperial. I don't even know who hired me. Morgan nodded along. So you, as an assassin, did no research on either your employer or target. Did not find out who either was or worked for, nor what you were getting yourself into as a whole. Solence scowled. I respect my client's anonymity, and how was I supposed to know he was a spy? You think they hang signs around their necks proclaiming it to the world. So either you are incompetent, lazy, or possess a code of honor. Any makes you a poor assassin. The woman crossed her arms, her face the picture of defiance. Morgan felt fear coming in waves from her, but so far her emotions did not point at lying. Let's make this simpler. Did you kill the spy on orders of enemies of the Empire? No. Morgan couldn't tell lies from the truth, not really. But her emotions pointed at the truth. No nervousness as she waited to see if he believed her lie. No guilt, or any other signs that she was deceiving him. Either, he stated, you are lying or telling the truth. If you are lying, then you do so to Sith, in the heart of their empire. If you are telling the truth, you are incompetent, unmotivated, or worse. But I cannot judge the latter, and I believe that you are telling the truth. Morgan turned to the jailer, who was watching with interest. Send her to Imperial Intelligence. They can judge if she is worth employing. Morgan turned to the next prisoner, and he spoke before he could say anything. Please, I am a fellow Sith. Grant me the opportunity for a trial by combat. I beg you. You beg? He asked, surprised. How long were you Sith? I served faithfully for 24 years, then one mistake and they threw me away. Please, let me feel the weight of a weapon once more. You beg? Morgan repeated, intrigued. You were Sith for 24 years, but beg. It wasn't disgust he felt. Not pity at his state or glee at the prospect of killing. Mostly he felt like he was doing a chore. The thing he had to get through so he could get back to doing what he wanted. But now the chore was slightly interesting, so he motioned to the jailer. Give him a weapon. The Sith bowed his head. My thanks, young warrior. Nash opened the cell, and handed the prisoner a weapon. Morgan realized he had made a mistake when the Sith enforced his body, strength rushing through his old frame. The training saber came straight for his eye, and it was all he could do to dodge and ready his own weapon. His blade was sharp as anything, with plasma running along its edge to make any wound that much worse. He was younger, rested and in top physical shape. His opponent was old, tired and starved. He wielded a training saber and had likely not fought for months. Yet he nearly died 5 times in 7 exchanges, the training saber he so readily threw away nearly reaping his life again and again. He could do little more than stay defensive, dodging what he could and blocking what he couldn't. The fight dragged on, first 1 minute and then 2. He realized, slowly, that he was wrong. That while the Sith was pushing him onto the defensive, he wasn't being beaten. The old man had experience, but was tired and weakened. His edge had been dulled, and age had taken what not even the dark could give back. Morgan had youth, and his edge was sharp. His mind slowly adapted to the speed and skill of his opponent. He could dodge more, make a few counter strikes here and there. He studied his opponent's enforcement by reflex, slowly adapting the superior technique into his own. It brought them closer to equal in speed and strength, his blows hitting harder and faster. Then, after what felt like hours of desperate fighting, the man slowed. Morgan raked superficial wounds across his body, and took less wounds himself. Where his opponent was slowing, he was going steady. His enforcement nowhere close to emptying his reserve, his shield strong and limbs steady. Then the old Sith made a mistake, dragging power from his shield to his limbs. He probably thought it wouldn't matter against a young acolyte, thought that even a weakened shield would suffice. Morgan slipped past it, jerking his opponent's wrist to the side so hard it shattered. He used up a quarter of his remaining power in the process. The old man didn't even grunt in pain, trying to grab his falling saber with his other arm. Morgan took it at the elbow, then cut deep along his stomach. Blood spilled, and the man collapsed. He breathed deeply, watching as the old Sith died on the floor. Pain covered his body, but he paid it little attention. Shaw showed me to be more cautious. Jesus Christ! Morgan looked at the man he had just killed, and felt little. No torrent of regret. No guilt gnawing at his bones. He had killed someone, for the very first time, and he felt nothing but exhaustion. Exhaustion that was leaving his frame with every heartbeat as enforcement flowed through him. Slow clapping reached his ear, and he turned his head to see the jailer near the door. He sure was a lot stronger than he seemed. Would have gutted me in a second, were I his opponent. He looked Morgan up and down, seeing his uniform in tatters and wounds covering his body. Might want to get those looked at, and maybe get a change of clothes. The last prisoner isn't going anywhere. Morgan ignored him, turning to the last part of his trial. I'm named Brieg, he said quickly. They suspect I forged documents for the Republic, but I'm innocent. Strange little fellow, remained adamant of his innocence despite being tortured, Nash said, stepping over the dead body on the floor. Always claimed he was set up. That's because I was, Brieg shouted. I forged some documents when I was younger, did time for it, but I've been clean since I came out. I swear. No good choices. No way to find out for sure if he's lying. Send him to Imperial Intelligence too. If they believe him, they could use a forger. If not, they can kill him themselves. Morgan looked at the jailer, seeing he was nudging the dead Sith with his foot. I'm done here. He walked away, not noticing that the Twi'lek had been watching the entire exchange. Not seeing how she watched him leave with narrowed eyes, looking between his retreating back and the body on the floor. Not even feeling the slight glimmer of hope in her, as she went back to staring at the walls. He walked into Overseer Tremel's office after a trip to the medic droid and a shower. It had taken care of his shallow wounds quickly, applying bandages and smearing ointments. A new uniform covered him, taken from the quartermaster all acolytes could request basic items from. Run back to your master in the beast pens, before I cut you in half. He heard Tremel sneer, just before an acolyte near sprinted past him. Ah, Acolyte Morgan. Finally. The overseer picked up a datapad, reading out loud. Now then, your test in the jails. First, the assassin. She attempted to kill an Imperial spy but was unaware of her client's affiliation. You assigned her to Imperial Intelligence. I commend you, that was excellent thinking. Never waste a potential resource. Tremel scrolled down. The failed warrior. Why grant his wish for a trial by combat? I wished to see what 24 years of experience would make of a Sith. To learn from him. The overseer looked up, eyes piercing into his own. You wished to learn from him? If an acolyte could kill him, no matter how promising, he was not worth learning from. You should have killed him in his cell. We don't have time to honor yesterday's accomplishments. In the future, come to me if you wish for instruction. Morgan bowed his head in acceptance, knowing it was a pointless offer. Either you are dead in a few days' time, or I am. I learned more from that fight than I will ever from you. Lastly, the forger. You sent him to Imperial Intelligence as well. Why? He is here. brought to Korriban for a crime without strong evidence. He must be very good at what he does, or someone would have killed him long before now. Innocent or not, I judged that Imperial intelligence should determine if he could be useful. The overseer scowled, but nodded. Acceptable, in this case. But remember that not all skills are in high demand. A forger, no matter how good, is easier to acquire than an assassin. Another acolyte walked into the room, carrying a stack of datapads. It seems other issues are pressing. You did well in this trial, if slowly. The overseer gave him a pointed look, but continued without further comment. Your next task is to go to the caverns of Marka Ragnos. Tremel pointed to a spot on his desk, and the acolyte put down his burden. In there is a beast he left to guard his legacy. Go there, sit among the flames, and wait for the beast to come for you. The overseer put down the datapad that he had begun reading, giving Morgan a stern look. This beast has been there for centuries, so long that records are conflicting on when exactly it was placed there. It has killed many an acolyte, and is exceedingly dangerous. You must kill it if we hope to have any chance to impress Darth Barras. He waved to the door. Go to the Valley of the Dark Lords and find the tomb. Slay the beast, and return to me when you are done. Dismissed. Morgan turned and left without comment, thinking. If it's a beast, I might be able to disrupt its mind. Kill it while it drools on the floor. Or maybe it's resistant to mind attacks, if it's survived for so long. Taking a shuttle to the lower wilds was easy enough, and once there he looked around. A minimal research station spread around him, with guards patrolling the perimeter and acolytes coming and going. One stark presence in the force was examining a beast on a table, acolytes caring for dozens more in cages. The perimeter was soft, he noted. No gate or walls, just soldiers and barricades. What acolytes came and went out of the station did so in groups, looking nervous to leave or returning bloodied. He saw no one he recognized, so went out of the perimeter almost as soon as the shuttle landed. Sir. A soldier stopped him. Pardon, sir. Haven't seen you before, and all new acolytes get a warning before leaving. Morgan waved at the woman to go on, looking out over the valley. Thank you, sir. The Lord in charge sent soldiers to gather his research materials before he tasked his acolytes. Unfortunately, some of the soldiers turned mad. Now they stalk the valley, attacking beasts and acolytes alike. The wildlife consists mostly of Tukata, but they are both numerous and territorial. Deeper into the valley, should you need to go that far, scouts reported to have found failed acolytes, hiding when they could not complete their task. This many acolytes and a Sith Lord are making the soldiers nervous. He thought, feeling fear spike and ebb as she talked to him. She took a deep breath, saluting. That concludes the briefing. Thank you for listening, sir. Morgan nodded. And thank you for the information, it will be most useful. He moved past her, hearing her snap to attention again as he did so. He was in the wilds proper soon after, and the number of acolytes he could see quickly dwindled to nothing, beasts taking their place. He quickly found that the beasts were both non-speaking, noting to thank Soft Voice for insisting they all learn their bestiary, and far more able to work together than most. He had to cut through the first group that found him entirely, leaving none to try and find out if he could manipulate them mentally. That trend continued for near half an hour, Morgan slowly making progress through the valley. Finally, a group he came upon contained a younger hound. He kept it after he killed the rest, wrestling it down and tying it with rope he had taken from the quartermaster. They looked only a little like dogs, but the resemblance still made Morgan want to try something different than making them turn on each other. So he examined its brain, slowly stimulating various parts of it. He found aggression fairly quickly this time, but moved past it. One made it yelp in pain, and another made the hound shake its head in confusion, whining. That part must be sight or balance. He noted. He poked another part, and he felt nothing happening immediately. He started to move on, but noticed the Tukata had become sluggish. He pressed the area again, and stepped back to observe. The hound seemed no different at first, but after some 10 seconds its eyes started to droop. It would shake awake, then repeat. Some 30 seconds after initial stimulation, it fell asleep on the ground. Soft snoring came from the beast, and Morgan allowed a small smile. "Kinda cute when they're not trying to bite my balls off. Seems I won't have to kill several dozen of them." He moved on, taking his rope and leaving the young hound to sleep. Any group he came across was soon snoring on the ground, Morgan only needing to give ground to buy time. Dodging out of their way wasn't too hard, and they usually only contained some 4 to 6 two-carter per group. It was when he moved deep into the valley, some hours walking, that he noticed a change. His mental shield, as ever-present as his soul one, started to come under attack. A slow, almost unnoticeable attack, seemingly from nowhere. Morgan took an embarrassing long moment to realize it was the dark itself grinding against his shield, not so much attacking as bumping into it. It was a high amount of dark energy, and he scowled. That Sith Lord must have known that this area was so strong in the dark, and he sent those troopers anyway. So either he didn't know, which seemed unlikely, didn't care, or wanted to weed out the weak-minded. In any case, a disgusting waste. Some 15 minutes after moving into the high dark area, he came upon the first soldier patrol. Came upon seemed too dramatic, however, because they were inanely arguing about how to best move a large boulder. No purpose or higher reason seemed clear from what little he could hear. Morgan snuck past with minimal effort. It was the same for many of the remaining soldiers he came upon, either staring vacantly at nothing, screaming to one another about random subjects, or fighting with the rare two-carter group. All were easily avoided, until he arrived at the tomb of Marka Ragnos. A half-dozen soldiers stood around the entrance, vigilant and with weapons ready. None seemed easy to distract, and Morgan saw no other way than to attack. Unless they still respect the chain of command? Madness is madness, but they are still behaving like soldiers, he thought. He walked around the boulder he had been hiding behind, lengthening his stride and putting a scowl on his face. The soldiers snapped their weapons to him, but he spoke before they could shoot. "At attention," he barked. "Officer inspection." Half of them snapped to it, the other half lowering their weapons in confusion. All except one. "We were not told of an inspection today, sir," the last suspicious soldier asked. "It's called a surprise inspection for a reason, soldier," he shouted, rapidly closing the distance and making his face look as angry as possible. "Now at attention before I boot you straight back to boot camp." It seemed to work, and he pretended to inspect armor and weapons while angling to step past them. "Wait a second. That's not an officer, it's a Jedi," the suspicious soldier shouted, raising his weapon and firing in one smooth motion. It hit the wall behind him, Morgan having moved to the side a few heartbeats before the soldier had even pulled the trigger, but it caused the rest of the soldiers to snap out of the fake inspection and raise their own weapons. He cursed, but was close enough to snatch a soldier's weapon out of his hand and start bashing it on their helmets. One good whack was enough to send them to the ground, none getting back up. With his speed and being so close to them, the half-dozen soldiers were on the ground before they could alert the whole valley with their blaster fire. Morgan made sure to hit hard enough to knock them out, but not so hard to cave in their skulls. A surprisingly delicate balance. That must have looked ridiculous, he thought as he moved past their prone forms, dropping the blaster. A Sith bonking soldiers on the head with their own weapon. Inside the tomb was a group of acolytes, dirty and starved. He slipped past one woman's shield and snapped her ankle, the sound causing the rest of them to scurry away like rats. They even left her behind, moaning on the ground where she had fallen. He kicked her head when he passed her, making her eyes roll into the back of her head. Not the Academy's finest, he noted dryly. Then, finally, he made it to the chamber itself. A huge slab of stone, covered with intricate carvings, dominated much of the room. Statues of Marka Ragnos loomed from the wall, and the floor was covered in dust. Dust and footprints. He kneeled at the carving, feeling out into the Force. The dark was near overwhelming here, but it did not attack. It flowed around his shield with no more malice than water, overwhelmingly powerful but harmless. For now. He studied it, the way it flowed and ebbed around. It moved through stone like smoke, yet bumped into walls Morgan could not see. After some time, a shape seemed to suggest itself, slipping out of his mind's eye just before he could recognize it. Then the force screamed at him to move, and he dove to the side. He cleared some 20 feet, using his enforcement to jump sideways more than roll. A huge beast lumbered where he had kneeled, vaguely resembling a spiky, smaller rancor. It shot at him with little warning from the force. Morgan jumped, using the ceiling to vault to the other side of the room. He tried to attack its mind, but ran into a blanket of dark so thick he couldn't push past it. That must be the beast, then. The force gave me less warning than normal. Better not get caught by those claws either, they seem like they would hurt. He jumped again when it charged, and it crashed into the wall behind him. Sure is fast. But unfortunately for you, I'm a lot more mobile. The next few minutes he spent playing a deadly game of catch, where Morgan used his superior agility to stay out of the huge paws of the beast. It seemed to become elated as the fight went on, enough so that even though both its soul and mind were shielded in the dark, Morgan could see it in its eyes. He was surprised when the beast tried to grab after him after another jump, a move that he could punish freely. His blade flashed, and 2 stumpy fingers dropped to the ground at the same time as a deafening bellow rebounded through the room. It resumed trying to catch him, its movement seeming angry, but its eyes shining relief. Almost like sparring with soft voice. Morgan reminisced. Those fights had him use superior speed and agility to avoid getting hit too. But then he had a saber, and he isn't quite as big as this one is. He also didn't have contradicting body language. Several more exchanges passed, with Morgan scoring little more than shallow cuts and the beast hitting him with nothing more than sound. Hurt his ears, but little more than that. Slowly, as Morgan lost himself in the repetition of dodging and jumping, the beast slowed. He could put a little more time calculating his blows, scoring deeper wounds between thick armored scales. Just like against that old Sith. Endurance over power. Speed over strength. He thought back to the holocron in the library. But it's even better to have both. The fight ended without fanfare, the beast slumping to the side from a dozen wounds. Morgan startled as the dark rushed to envelop it, feeling almost protective. Its shields dropped when it fell to the ground, and Morgan could feel the beast's emotion for the first time. It felt tired. So very, very tired. Finally, a rough snarl sounded in his head, finally an acolyte that can put an end to this misery. Morgan startled again, the voice crashing against his mental shield without damage and giving it an strange echoing quality. "You can talk?" he asked back. He had been wondering why he had seen intelligence in those eyes, yet the beast had tried to kill him the same way every time. Dangerous, to be sure. One slip and he would have been paced, the bruises on his shoulder from a slight graze telling him that much. But predictable all the same. I was forbidden. It spoke. Forbidden from speaking. Forbidden from leaving. Stalking this dark tomb for centuries. Alone. I'm sorry. He told it, sheathing his blade. That must have been lonely. I wanted to join my master. It said, voice weakening. But I was young. So very young. My keepers dismissed my claims. Told me that I could not join where he had gone. They thought I did not understand death. It snarled into Morgan's mind, anger bleeding over the connection between them. When I rebelled against them, when I fought to join my master's side, they chained me. They used the sorcery that birthed me to chain my mind. To bind me to this place. To his grave. Its eyes focused, locking with his. Listen well, young Sith, for you deserve a prize for setting me free. My master grew to heights few have reached since. He claimed world after world as his prize and built an empire from his followers. He was a man many respected. A man none disobeyed. But I remember a time when he was but a lowly Sith, young and ambitious. We used to play in green fields, running and wrestling. I used to sleep at his side, something deep within me knowing stars would shatter before he would allow harm done to me. The beast's chest heaved, then stayed still. But the more powerful he grew, the less joy I saw in him. The more followers he gained, the more time he spent ensuring they did not betray him. He was a man none disobeyed. But the more power he gained, the more lonely he became. Remember that, young Sith. Surround yourself with those you trust. With those you love. When you can have anything you desire, it will be too late. Its voice faded, and Morgan chased the connection before it broke. Maybe we'll play again, like when we were both young and happy. I'm sorry, Master. I tried to follow you. I tried. Please don't leave me all alone again. Morgan felt the dark spike, rushing as a tsunami to the dying beast. He felt the dark lift something, before his senses overloaded from the power and he could feel no more. It subsided, the tomb feeling strangely empty at its passing. The drain on his mental shield lessened, until it felt as any other place on Korriban. But before it was gone entirely, Morgan's strained senses saw a shadow beyond shape. A shadow that looked at him, and he felt like the statues had come alive. A shadow that reached out, like a giant would pet a kitten. A surge so powerful it knocked Morgan out cold, even if all it had meant to do was wave. A gesture that felt like gratitude. Morgan woke up feeling strangely rested, finding himself lying on the cold ground of a tomb. It took him a few seconds to remember, until the memory of whatever that had been resurfaced. A shiver went through him, having little to do with the cold stone. He stood up, looking around to find the corpse of the beast gone. All right. Yes. Completely normal for Lovecraftian entities to wave at me and giant bodies to randomly disappear without a trace. No fuckery beyond human comprehension going on here, no sir. He backtracked through the tomb with little issue, finding himself at peace despite probably having met the ghost of Marka Ragnos himself. Walking out of the tomb found him catching the sun as it rose, and he realized he must have slept for nearly 15 hours. He checked his datapad to see he had, in fact, slept for a little over 14. No wonder I feel so rested. Also, note to self, let's not mention to Tremel or anyone else I may have met Marka Ragnos. Groans reached his ear, and he looked to the ground to find the soldiers he had knocked out stirring. If you are still unconscious after 14 hours, it's not my fault. I didn't hit you lot that hard. Silence answered his joke, so he sighed and slapped the only corporal among them awake. Strangely enough, not the same soldier that had blown his inspection before. Wake up time. Unless you're still inflicted with dark-induced madness. In that case, better if you stay asleep. The effect that had held part of the valley in its clutches disappeared when he had killed the beast, but he had no idea if the madness it had induced was permanent. Wah! What's going on? Who are you? Morgan smiled reassuringly, but the corporal blanched. Right, still covered in blood. At ease, Corporal. I'm Acolyte Morgan. He made sure to use his name, as much to humanize himself as to make sure he remembered it. I killed the source of the madness, and it seems its effects are not permanent. The corporal looked around, noting her squad around her. She frowned. I remember some of it. Something about A. She squinted at Morgan, trying to remember. Yes. You walked up, shouting about a surprise inspection. He raised an eyebrow. You remember? Well, that's gonna make for some good laughs between your soldiers. She looked at him questioningly. He shrugged. Most of the troopers in the valley weren't dutifully guarding something. Morgan clapped his hands. Now then, wake up the rest of your squad and let's move out. We have strays to collect, and I have other things to do today. Like killing Tremel. How fun that will be, he thought dryly. The corporal woke up her squad, introduced herself formally as Shara, and they set out at a brisk pace. The first troopers they came across were already awake themselves, and consisted of only privates. They joined them without issue, and so did the next two groups they came across. It was the third that proved to be troublesome, and Morgan returned to the small army of 19 soldiers to find Corporal Scherer arguing with a sergeant. "I was only gone for 10 minutes. He groused. "At least the puppies are sleeping now." "I don't care about your opinion, Corporal." The sergeant barked. "We will collect the artifact. Me and my men have been sent for." "That's an order." Scherer looked at him helplessly as he returned, and the sergeant snapped around. "Ah, the acolyte that freed us from that nasty curse. Well done." The sergeant pulled out his datapad, flashing a Sith identification order in Morgan's face. "This states I am allowed to conscript acolytes to assist with my task as necessary. Consider yourself under my authority until we complete my assignment." The sergeant, who still hadn't introduced himself, turned to walk away. Morgan froze his foot in place, causing him to fall on his face. "First of all, don't turn away from me." Morgan spoke calmly. "Secondly, who was the Sith that gave you that order, given that you entrust your life to a piece of paper?" The man pulled himself up, red-faced. "That order came from Lord Renning himself. Fall in, or I will have you executed for treason." Morgan walked up to him, and to the man's credit he stood his ground. "You do not have the authority to have me executed, Sergeant, Lord Renning does. You are not him." He pulled the datapad out of the hands of the sergeant, reading from it. The man flinched. "This states that you are allowed to conscript any acolyte already under the authority of Lord Renning, which I am not. But perhaps most important, Sergeant, look around." The man did, finding the troopers around them standing ramrod straight. "Who do you think, if forced to choose, they will support? The sergeant that wishes them, under-equipped and just freed from madness, to delve into another tomb, or the Sith that wants them back at base, eating, sleeping and laughing at the dumb shit they did while affected?" He clapped the man on the shoulder, watching as he tried very hard to keep his face blank. "Pick your battles, Sergeant. Now let's move, we have more soldiers to collect." The man relented, if with a great deal of internal anger, and the troopers around them relaxed slightly. They swept the valley clean of any stragglers, Morgan putting any two-carter they came across to sleep. Before long, all troopers were collected. 4 sergeants took command of the near 100 remaining men, and they marched up to the research station near noon. Lord Renning greeted them at the barricade. "The Force told me you would return, acolyte." Morgan bowed, and the soldiers behind him saluted. "And it seems you have gathered the weak-minded after completing your trial. How conscientious." The Lord waved dismissively, and the soldiers moved into the station. It left Morgan to speak with Lord Renning alone, until a certain sergeant broke in. "Apologies, my lord." The man spoke. "But I must inform you that the mission you assigned to me has failed." Morgan could feel the Lord's surprise at being interrupted, but the sergeant continued charging to his certain death. "Regrettably, me and my men succumbed to the curse before we could complete it, but I wished to continue the second it was lifted. To rally the remaining soldiers and complete the mission no matter the cost." Surprise turned to irritation, but the Lord displayed none of it on his face. Morgan took a step away from the sergeant. "Then this low acolyte waylaid my orders. Threatened me when I insisted my work was on your orders, and forced me to return to you empty-handed." Morgan took another step away from the idiot, not a second too late. Lord Renning's hand shot up, lightning shooting at the man. He smelled the sergeant's hair burning, but kept his eyes on Lord Renning as he heard the man's body drop silently. "Well met, acolyte." Lord Renning continued, as if never interrupted. "I am Sith Lord Renning, master of this outpost." He bowed again, introducing himself. Both the Sith Lord and Morgan ignored the body on the floor. He informed the Lord about his exploits in the tomb when asked, the Sith listening intently. Morgan was careful not to utter a direct lie, or mention even a hint about what he had seen. "Fascinating. I do believe the whole world has felt the death of that beast, such a worthy specimen. Alas, Some places acolytes can go that Sith Lords cannot. Before Morgan could ask why, the Lord chuckled. Look at me, prattling like an old man. Go back to your overseer, I'm sure he will be impressed with your deeds. The Sith stuck out his hand, and Morgan shook it. With how much growing you still have to do, I look forward to your exploits. The man nodded goodbye, and left. Morgan stood still a few seconds, seeing a couple troopers walk his way with a stretcher. Well, that was creepy. He walked to the speeder platforms, flagging down a ride. The speeder rose into the air. I'm sure the rest of my day will be a breeze, he thought sarcastically. Well, look who's here. Remember me? Slab asked hoarsely, a colto patch clearly visible on his throat. Morgan sighed, something he had been doing a lot of recently. Well, at least I got to shower before getting blood all over me again. He doesn't seem to be in a here to apologize kinda mood. And he's blocking me from seeing Tremel. Again. Get to the point, Slab. Slab's face scrunched in confusion, then scowled. You're trying to trick me again. My name's Dol. Don't care. Morgan interrupted. And I'm really not trying to trick you. Slab kept scowling, but continued. Vemrin thought I should follow up on our earlier discussion. He made a show of looking around. Notice anything interesting? No witnesses. No witnesses means no rules. The giant wall of muscle took out a syringe, jabbing it into his own neck. No more shortcuts. No more special treatment. You're just gonna be another dead failure on Korriban. Morgan felt Slab's presence in the Force go wild, rushing through his body. His muscles seemed to throb, and the acolyte jumped at Morgan with enough speed he was briefly taken by surprise. Briefly being the operative word, because after dodging and blocking the first few wild swings, Morgan noticed that while Slab's speed and strength had greatly increased, his saber skills had not. He also wasn't quite used to it, judging by the way even slightly messing with his balance had him tripping like a drunkard. The fight ended after 6 seconds, with Morgan's blade cutting into Slab's Achilles tendon. The giant toppled, screaming. No. Hold up, hold up. Look, I was wrong. What they're saying about you, totally true. So strong. I don't wanna die. Morgan sheathed his blade, feeling Slab's body out with the force. I'm not going to kill you, he reassured the giant. But whatever it is you took, will. I'd say it's about 20 seconds away from getting to your heart. Slab's face scrunched. But Vemrin sigh, he gasped, grabbing at his chest. Or less. Morgan corrected. He looked on as Slab died, frowning. Ruthless with no real point. Is that the kind of man you are, Vemrin? He shook his head and walked over Slab's corpse, stepping into the overseer's office. Tremel was pacing, looking stressed. Ah, good. We must speak quickly, acolyte, there isn't much time. I may have made a slight miscalculation. The overseer looked to the door, as if expecting someone. The beast of Marka Ragnos was a great source of dark energy here on Korriban. When it was slain, there was a tremor in the force. Morgan breathed evenly, observing the overseer as closely as he could. In good shape, walks like a predator. Weapon always close, and it's a proper lightsaber. I'll need to take that from him, and quickly. Can't judge his shield without him feeling it, but safe bet it's strong and well made. Darth Barras felt that tremor and has become aware of you. He demands an audience. Tremel looked at the door again. Barras is a serious man, and a master of deception. Everything he does and says is calculated. He will attempt to trip you up, test your nature, get to the heart of who you are. Always take him seriously. And I mean always. We might not speak again, acolyte. The overseer said gravely. You're the best chance of stopping Vemrin. If you fail, I doubt there will be another strong enough. Good luck. Morgan gave a shallow bow, turning to leave. See you soon, overseer. He stepped over Slab's body again, and walked through the academy shaping and reshaping his shields. A nervous tick, he realized. It's a while since I've been nervous. He thought. Not since the facility reforged me. So what's going on then? He turned his attention inward, feeling for his emotions. Letting emotions go into the Force wasn't something he was capable of, but examining them was something he did near daily. Fear of death? He nearly giggled in the halls of the academy. Death would be a nice vacation. No. Of failure? He frowned. Not quite. What then? Why am I nervous? He continued walking through the halls, and he still had no answer when he came to the chamber of Dark Lord Barras. There, Tino, I believe that's the one, Astra said. All right. The large acolyte responded. Hey, you. Astra shook her head in disappointment, and Morgan looked at her for a second. Now what is she doing here? Come on, I'm antsy for some action. You there? Are you the big shot they're all talking about? The one who's been personally summoned by Darth Barras himself? Morgan swept his scan over the lot of them, noting their relative strength. Still, nothing Astra should be surrounding herself with. Out. All of you, Morgan commanded. The acolytes hesitated, surprised. Don't care what you want, just go. They left, Tino frowning as he went. His ally stayed. That was easy. Astra sighed. Really, my lord? I'm short on time, Astra. Don't really feel like participating in more dick measuring. He looked at her, noting she hadn't changed much. Right. It's only been what? 2 days? 3? Feels longer. So what have you been up to, then? He asked. She pouted, and Morgan felt her push sadness at him. Way to ruin my fun. Took me all morning to find acolytes strong enough to not be completely worthless but dumb enough to follow me. Morgan gave her a look, and she straightened. All right, fine. Me and the rest of the crew have been assigned to some military unit, clearing out the more dangerous tombs. Lord Zethix dove in with his usual eagerness, but he tasked us with keeping an ear out for you. She looked at him, observing. And in the 3 days we have been clearing out dusty tombs filled with self-assembling droids and more monsters than you can shake a stick at, you've been rather busy. Astra held up a hand, ticking off fingers. Found a warblade most acolytes would give a hand for, rescuing doomed soldiers while doing so. Killed a Sith champion with decades of experience, terrifying the jailer so much he's been drinking and blabbering about you in the cantina. Went to a valley most acolytes go to die, then not only thrived but killed a beast that they stopped using as a trial because it killed so many acolytes. And then, as if you've not been showing off enough, you have been getting attention from not 1, but 2 Sith Lords. Did I miss anything? Oh right, now one of the Sith Lords that noticed you maybe wants you for an apprentice. Morgan looked at her dryly. I do know what I've been up to, seeing as I am the one having done all that. Now, why are you here, and why are Soft Voice and the rest of you clearing tombs like soldiers? Astra frowned. Because that's what we're going to be, apparently. Someone pulled strings to keep us together, and we've been working with the military constantly. Lord Zethix thinks we're being trained as some sort of special forces platoon, and I don't disagree. As to why I'm here, things are moving quickly, for you more than most. There's been talk that we'll be leaving Korriban in a few weeks, and you might be gone without warning. She turned serious, unusual for her. So Zethix sent me to tell you that you haven't been forgotten. That while he might not be able to do much now, he wants you to know you still have allies in the Sith. He says he is your friend, now and always. Astra hesitated, and Morgan felt her wrestle with her emotions for a second. Zethix trained us. Protected us. We owe him everything, from our lives to our sanity. She looked Morgan in the eye. But we owe you too. Without you, Zethix would have been forced to spend much of his time protecting us instead of teaching us. Without you stealing every technique you came across, we wouldn't know half the tricks we do. Astra turned, and Morgan felt embarrassment in her. Embarrassment and determination. One day, Morgan, one day we will repay you. And when that day comes, It won't be mere acolytes standing with you. It won't be 20 Sith. She looked back briefly. We will come with legions, so many we will darken the sun. Most of you will not return from this endeavor. Barras lectured. If you die, you will be forgotten. If you give up, you will be killed. Now, out of my sight. He saw his late summon ignore both Vemrin and one of the worthless as they tried to talk to him, walking straight to his desk and bowing deeply. Are you having trouble with acolyte Vemrin, supplicant? He asked when the bowing acolyte before him stayed silent. Competition breeds strength, my lord. Barras couldn't feel his emotions, his lightest scan running into a barrier. He could crush it in an instant, but he left his newest toy to the illusion of control. He could read the nervousness from his face without the force easily enough. Vemrin has paid his dues. He's fought a deck stacked against him to get here. You, on the other hand. He scrutinized the acolyte. If you think the training Overseer Sasha has given you will make you Sith, you are sorely mistaken. Her little project was not completed, and you would not have survived it if it had been. Then Overseer Tremel got his claws in you. Yes, as I suspected. He has done you and this academy a great disservice. Your warblade came early, prisoners flown in for your convenience, even a beast here on Korriban instead of offworld in the wild. Barras could read little from his newest acolyte. He still spoke of mute nerves, as he should, but the rest of him was calm. Controlled. He narrowed his eyes behind his mask. Not born of fear. And not nervous because of me. He continued. The pacing of the trials is deliberate. Only full immersion over time produces results. Your mind is soft, unhoned, undisciplined. Barras regretted not shattering his shield earlier, as doing it now would be giving in to base desire. This acolyte cared little for his opinions, that much he could see clearly. He disagrees. And if even half of what I've read about Project Culling is true, he will care even less for any pain I inflict him. The first month of the trials should be dedicated to philosophy, conceptual tactics, understanding of the Sith Code. He kept needling. Best to treat him as any fresh upstart, lest he thinks himself special. Recite the Sith Code for me, acolyte, and explain its meaning in battle, war, and politics. He ordered. His acolyte recited the Sith Code from memory, pausing afterward to collect his thoughts. Barras waited. It means that we choose. We choose to follow our passions. We choose what to do with our strength. With the dark, our chains are broken, and we are free to choose. Barras hummed. A novice and lackluster explanation, but not incorrect. The truly correct answer is passion, acolyte Morgan. Passion is what pushes us. What sustains us. Your passion clearly stems from slave roots. He ran his sight along his acolyte's shield, looking at it deeply. He saw Morgan tense slightly, but otherwise show no reaction. How strangely unpathetic. Almost as skillful as an overseer's, if weaker. What will you do, when your passion is fulfilled? Will you languish, I wonder, ambitions fulfilled? He watched Morgan, but his acolyte seemed a servile supplicant. Head slightly bowed, pose carefully relaxed. In any case, he continued as his acolyte stayed silent, I am your master now. Tremel was becoming lax before you ever arrived. His unwillingness to adapt to the evolving Sith paradigm has become a liability. These are the actions of a traitor. Traitors are executed. I grant you immunity from punishment. Kill Tremel, and bring back his hand as proof. Barras waved, dismissing his new acolyte. Now, leave. I'm sure Tremel is still in his chambers. Don't return until you've killed him. Morgan walked back to Overseer Tremel's office, mentally naming beasts and as much information as he knew each as he walked. He arrived, walking inside and very carefully, not thinking about what he was about to do. I didn't expect to see you, Argai, Tremel began. Morgan interrupted him by grabbing near half his reserves and enveloping the Overseer's shield with it. Tremel jumped out of his chair, grabbing for his lightsaber. Morgan ran his perception over his shield, finding it near perfect. until he saw a crack, a tiny weakness that he would not have noticed before the holocron had tested his control. Had improved upon it. He poured his power against it, grinding and twisting until it tore a hole straight through the shield. He lost power while doing so, but with what remained he summoned the only lightsaber in the room to his hand. Tremel grabbed after it with the force, and his power was greater than Morgan's by a wide margin. He cursed, letting go of the lightsaber and finding his opening in the man's shield rapidly close. He pulled back, instead using what power remained in his attack to fling a vase at the overseer's head. He dodged. Well, fuck. He thought as Tremel's lightsaber ignited. I really hoped that would work. Power cracked against his shield, but here the overseer was outmatched. It surrounded his defenses, strangling his shield like a snake. Unfortunately for Tremel, that was what almost any other Sith did too, and Morgan had long since found a counter. As long as the power gap wasn't overwhelmingly large, Morgan simply let them. He built his shield larger for a purpose, slowly shrinking and repairing it as it got damaged. Tremel was losing more power attacking than he was defending, by a large margin, and the Dark withdrew soon after he noticed. Tremel might have even won, if he had kept it up. But you don't know that, do you? Not for sure. You spend too long behind a desk, overseer. Forgot what it's like to take risks. Morgan drew his own saber, enforcing his body. Strength rippled through him, the old Sith from the cells having been very helpful in refining his technique. Shame I couldn't copy it wholesale. He thought as the overseer looked at him. But it's not like I use the Dark exclusively, unlike what apparently everyone but Soft Voice thinks. A lightsaber cut through the air, the crackling of plasma filling the room. The overseer jumped at him, and Morgan dodged a blow that would have taken his head. To his surprise, they were even in speed, the champion he had fought, and stolen from, more able an enforcer than either of them. Not too surprising. That Sith had spent his life on the battlefield, while Tremel has been behind a desk for decades now. Unfortunately, and unlike the champion, Tremel wielded an actual lightsaber. Morgan was under no illusion what it would do to his warblade if he tried to block. He jerked his leg back, nearly losing it to a sweep, and pressured the overseer with a quick jab to his throat. The man backpedaled, Morgan feeling the man shake the rust from his frame as they fought. I need to end this, now. Morgan decided. So when the overseer made a sweep to force his wrist back, or risk losing it, he continued the attack. He grabbed his warblade with the force, pushing it forward as quickly as he could at the same time the lightsaber shaved cleanly through his wrist. Tremel tried to jump out of the way, but wasn't quite fast enough. Morgan's warblade entered just below the chin, and the Dark fled from the overseer in torrents. The Dark, as always, was a fickle mistress. He heard the sound of his hand hitting the floor, pain flooding his mind. He breathed through it, finding it as easy to ignore as ever. Tremel was clutching at the saber in his neck, dying. Come to me, B-84, he called to the hallways. My right hand was cleaved by a lightsaber, no other injuries. The medical droid he had dragged here from the med bay beeped softly as it entered, walking to his hand. It picked it up, a scalpel folding out of its other hand. It held it close to Morgan's stump. Please keep still. I must remove the cauterized skin before reattachment is possible. With enforcement still flowing through his body, that wouldn't be a problem. He told the droid as much, and it started scraping even as it protested. I must advise the use of a sedative. This will be very painful, it is. Morgan confirmed. Keep working. He looked to the overseer, who was looking at the droid in confusion. No offense, overseer. I figured B-84 can treat the wounds of the winner. Quite glad I brought him, actually. The man died as the droid was reattaching his hand, dozens of small tools. Morgan had no knowledge about poking and prodding at his wrist. When it was finished, B-84 applied a colto cast. I advise limited to no use of the right hand for at least 1 week, preferably 2. Loss of feeling or stiffness is normal, and can be permanent. Additional surgeries can be performed when the wound has properly healed. Morgan nodded, unconcerned. Not if I master fleshcrafting anytime soon. Thank you, B-84, you can return to your normal duties. It left, and Morgan looked down at the body of the overseer. He was alone for maybe 10 seconds. You, Eskella shouted as she stormed inside. What have you done to him? Where is he? She looked at the body of her father, freezing in place. Morgan bowed his head. My condolences. Darth Barras ordered me to kill him, but I took no pleasure from it. Morgan felt the dark consume her whole. Felt how it clawed at her, how it feasted on her anger. Her grief. He frowned. Don't be rash. You can leave here. Have a life, a future. She screamed, jumping at him blade first. He bypassed her shield entirely, the excess dart leaving her shield in shambles. He took the drags of his power and grasped her neck. A snap echoed through the room as she dropped, her head facing upward while her chest was pointed to the floor. Morgan sighed. I really need to get off this godforsaken planet. Veta watched the walls as she waited, growing less and less sure of her prediction. That acolyte has done the judging thing. That means he's an apprentice of Tremel something. Soon he'll need my help in the tombs, and I can finally get out of this damned cage. She saw the jailer fiddle with the remote to her collar from the corner of her eye, and braced for the pain. It never came, instead she heard a strangled cry. I've been having a shitty day, Nash. She heard the acolyte she had been waiting for say. Do you want to hear about it? No? Too bad, since you appear to be lacking the ability to have a choice. Veta turned, seeing the jailer that had been tormenting her for months on his knees. The acolyte from the judgment was towering over him, holding the remote to her collar in one hand. I woke up, you see, with my right hand being stiff and less responsive. Why? The man on the floor gasped, but Veta saw the acolyte hadn't done anything to him. Must be that force stuff. Well, yesterday, my former overseer cut it off. And when I killed him, I didn't even get to keep his lightsaber. Then, when reporting to Darth Barras this morning, he sent me on a fetch quest. Making copies in the tomb of Tuluk Horde from ancient inscriptions. Copies written by hand, mind you. Veta saw some acolytes make a break for it, stalking out the jails as quietly as they could. Not the easiest task, when your fingers will barely hold a damned pen. I do think that was rather the point. Wanted to teach me a lesson, you see. Unnecessary risks. She looked around, not seeing anyone else even remotely nearby. Then I returned, and good news, Nash gasped again, clutching at his throat. I've been made his apprentice. Beating Vemerin to the punch, as they say. I'm sure he won't mind at all, and the thought of killing me to take my place surely hasn't even crossed his mind. She saw the jailer turn even whiter, and the petty part of her rejoiced. Now, I have to go into another ancient tomb, collect a lightsaber that may or may not even still be there, and is also very very hard to find. But, luckily, there is someone who knows how to get to it. Someone who, just as I walked in, you were about to torture again. I need her, you see. The acolyte said. And I need her with the damned ability to think. Veta, dozens of feet away, flinched at the sound of the scream. She felt something about it. Something more than just sound. The jailer on the ground started crying, collapsing entirely. The acolyte sighed, walking her way. She put a smile on her face, stamping down on her fear. Apologies. He began. He irked me. I don't normally lose my temper like that. She nodded, making her leku bob behind her. He is rather irksome. Indeed. He opened the cage. I'm the newest apprentice of Darth Barras, Morgan. Veta took her first full steps in weeks, feeling how weak her legs had become. I'm Veta. She bubbled. Pleasure to meet you, Veta. Walk with me? He started walking away, and Veta noted with some concern he clipped the remote to his belt. As you might have heard, I've been sent on a task to collect a lightsaber. A lightsaber that only you know how to get to, in the tomb that you were caught in. I suppose I can play tomb tour guide. A lot of work went into cracking that nut, but I did it once, I can do it again, she said cheerily. They came to a counter, and Veta watched as her new owner requested a backpack and supplies. She noted with approval he was thorough with it, rope, lights and plenty of food and water all being loaded into the pack. He shouldered it, and he started walking down the stairs. Veta hesitated for a split second, but started moving down after him. She made sure to show none of the pain her ankle was radiating. Halfway down the flight of steps, which were rather large, he stopped. She was so focused on appearing normal she didn't notice until he turned around. "You," he said, "are very good at hiding pain and emotions." A flash of panic went through her, but she put a smile on her face. He sighed. "I can only imagine what has been done to you, so I won't ask for trust. But having your mobility hindered will get us both killed, so I would appreciate it if you would tell me when you are hurt. Never show weakness, never show fear." The mantra raced through her head. She tried to play it off, make some joke, but before she could something enveloped her foot. She yelped. "It's just a crutch, of sorts. Come, we'll get you to the med bay." Veta tried to put her foot down, but to her surprise her leg was fixed in place. She put her other foot forward, frowning. Then she tried to move her injured left foot, and it moved without issue. She swung her injured foot, feeling very little pain. Then she swung her right foot, feeling the other lock into place. She looked up, seeing Morgan stare at her blankly. "Done playing?" Veta flushed, nodding. She hobbled into the med bay with increasing skill, and sat on a bed when Morgan pointed to it. The strange non-weight around her foot disappeared, and she realized he must have been doing that manually. She frowned thoughtfully when Morgan turned away to talk to a droid. "What kind of game are you playing?" she wondered. A droid that was quickly replaced by an older-looking Sith, one who Veta didn't know. Not that the list of Sith I do know is very long. The med bay and its resources are only for acolytes or Sith, not for slaves. The Sith said coldly. Veta noted a touch of strain in her neck. "I need her for the trial that Darth Barras has assigned me." She saw the Sith lose a touch of color, but she remained stubborn. "Nevertheless, you may request basic first aid material from the quartermaster. She cannot be here." Veta heard Morgan sigh. He looked at a droid. "You, give her a full checkup. Everything you can fix in a few hours, and make a list of what you can't. No stims or other mind-altering drugs. And no combat enhancements." The Sith woman scowled, pointing to the droid. "Hold where you are." The droid stopped. Veta didn't like the increasing tension in the room. She saw many of the other occupants didn't much either. "You don't give orders here, acolyte," she sneered at Morgan. "I am the overseer of the medical division, not you. No filthy alien slave will be treated here, no matter who your master is." Morgan looked at the woman, then looked back at her. He muttered something she couldn't quite hear. The overseer doubled over, seemingly out of nowhere. Veta saw blood leak from her nose. "I wonder how long it's been since you've held a blade. How long since you fought for your right to live?" Veta snapped her head back to Morgan, who was suddenly not looking much like the tired acolyte from the jails. "From the state of your shield, it must have been a long while," he chuckled, a dark sound. "So since you so rudely declined to heal someone I need for a task assigned to me by a Dark Lord of the Sith, I shall remember you. I've already killed one overseer this week, and I'm pretty sure I crippled another. 3 would be too much, even for Darth Barras." The woman got up on shaky legs, breathing deeply. Morgan turned to the same droid again. "Take what supplies you need for a checkup, then come with me." This time, the woman said nothing as the droid did as ordered, trying to not look afraid. Veta didn't think she did a very good job. The strange feeling snapped around her foot again, and she stood. She saw Morgan turn to the overseer before they left. "Remember your spine, when I walk these halls a lord myself." That was stupid. Morgan berated himself as he walked into the library. Making enemies so quickly is foolish, and you know it. Half his mind was on operating the semi-cast he had around Vetta's foot, feeling her hobble behind him. The droid walked after her, beeping to itself. So why was I so angry? Here is good, he said to both Vetta and the droid. How long will this take? Vetta sat down on the bench, the droid bending over her. Approximately 3 hours. I have all I need, and from my preliminary examination she does not need invasive surgery. Dehydration, malnutrition and various flesh wounds will be healed quickly, while I can apply a colto cast for her ankle. It will heal in half a day, should the bone not be stressed. Vetta piped up before he could. Well, we are going into an ancient tomb filled with many nasties. I think combat is not unlikely. The droid whirred. A strengthening sleeve over the colto cast should decrease the risk of re-breaking the bone significantly as it reattaches. It will limit the application of colto, and increase healing time to over 24 hours. That's fine. Vetta answered. Can I run with it? Yes. Morgan turned, walking away. It seems you have this under control. I will be over there a ways, studying. Collect me when you are finished. He came to the holocron, opening it in a few minutes. The pathways had changed since last he opened it. Acolyte. Back for another lesson, are we? Morgan gave a shallow bow, taking a seat. Of a sort. I was wondering if you could help me with a problem. The voice paused, and to Morgan it seemed surprised. You do remember that I am not, in fact, a person? Nor have any influence outside of this holocron? I do. The problem is flesh-related. He noted to never use that phrase again. In the course of my trials, I was ordered to kill my overseer. He had a lightsaber, while I did not. Sacrifices were necessary to achieve victory. I had a medical droid nearby, and my hand was reattached within 60 seconds of removal. The voice broke in. And now your hand is stiff and unresponsive. Hard to write, or otherwise perform dexterous tasks with. Morgan nodded, a gesture the voice could see in ways it had not told him. Indeed. The hand is otherwise properly reattached? No major loss of function, or complete lack of sensation? No. The voice hummed, seeming less tired now than last time he had spoken to it. I suppose we can start your first exercise early. Your control should be good enough, if only just. It cleared its non-existent throat. Now then, a way to fix your hand, and indeed to start your practice on flesh grafting proper, is to achieve awareness over the body. Close your eyes. Morgan did so. Turn inwards, and feel for your blood. Feel your heartbeat, and with every drum how it pushes the blood through your body. He felt for it, and after some 10 minutes he thought he had it. He told the voice so. Good. Now, ever so carefully, infuse your blood with the force. Not to act, just to follow. It should feel close to how enforcement feels, only contained to your blood. Morgan tried, and failed, for nearly 3 hours. Every failure taught him something. Every success exciting the voice immensely. It told him to attempt it in all kinds of ways, until it finally clicked when Morgan infused his blood between heartbeats. The voice hummed, pleased. Good. For now, only flow it through your injured arm. From your heart to your hand, doing nothing more than following. Start slow, we have no practitioner nearby to reverse any true mistakes. It took him 15 minutes until he had a completed loop, slowly speeding up. How does this help my hand, exactly? Because the force is life, my acolyte. It is everything, everywhere. Always. When you infuse your blood with the force, it enriches it. Oxygen strengthens the muscles better. Stronger white blood cells to fight disease. Red blood cells work faster, and can make jumps where they couldn't before. Thus, increased healing. Or rather the ability to heal what it could not before. Morgan focused on his hand, noticing a tingle in his pinky where before he had felt nothing. You make it sound like this is a common problem. The voice laughed. There was a time we trained new acolytes with proper lightsabers. You can imagine the number of times we had to reattach limbs. You are lucky we did, we nearly mastered the practice. Having a medical droid nearby was smart. Reattachment in less than a minute was once considered a miracle. So this will heal my hand fully? He asked. It will, and more. When you get used to it, increase to both arms. Then all your limbs, before following the entire circulatory structure. In time, it will feel as natural as breathing. You will heal faster, get sick less, and become slightly stronger. The voice laughed merrily. This is only the start, the least of the abilities afforded to a fleshcrafter. Now, I do think we made the Twi'lek wait long enough. Morgan's head shot up, seeing Veta had snuck up on him. Fuck me. How long has she been there? I'm all healed, boss. Ready to steal some treasure, she said happily, flexing her arms. Feels great to not starve again. Thanks for that. Of course. He replied automatically, standing up. He closed the holocron, putting away his datapad as Veta giggled creepily while doing jumping jacks. Why, by all the gods, didn't the Force warn me Veta was sneaking up on me?